faggot, sissy, homo, punk. These are words that I heard early on in my life. It was about the age of 4 when the kids in the neighborhood started to call me faggot. Well, at 4 years old, of course, I didn't know what faggot meant, but I knew that I didn't like the energy behind the word and how it was making me feel. And I can see my 4-year-old little self like it was just yesterday. Me looking up at my neighbor, Mr. Pembleton, and saying, "Mr. Pembleton, what does faggot mean?" Well, of course he didn't answer my question. Well, actually, he did answer my question. He answered my question with a question. And the question was, why on earth are you asking me that question? And I said to him, well, that's what all the kids are calling me. So he didn't answer me really. What he told me was that I shouldn't worry about what they're saying. You know, don't pay attention to what the kids are saying. And based on that answer, I knew that whatever faggot meant couldn't be a good thing. Not at all. Well, little did I know that that would be the beginning of many years of relentless bullying. Horrible harassment and name-calling, even leading up to one day me being pulled off of a city bus by a group of guys and beaten up. And when one of the guys were asked why they were beating me up, his response was, because he's a faggot and faggots spread AIDS. Can you believe it? All of this happening during rush hour in front of about 75 people, and no one did a thing. Now, I know people are scared, they don't want to get involved, but the late great Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's such a profound statement. Think about it. Your injustice is a threat to my justice. My injustice is a threat to your justice. Now, believe it or not, I went into my 20s identifying as a gay male, an effeminate gay male. Well, when I was growing up, and I'm not going to tell you what year that was, you never ask a lady how old she is, but anyway, when I was growing up, there weren't computers. You couldn't go online and Google information. And so I didn't know what it meant to be transsexual or even what transgenderism was. But what I did know is how I felt inside. And in my 20s, I started to connect the dots. And I thought about things that I did growing up, like as a little boy being in my room and pretending to be pregnant and simulating giving birth. And when I became a teenager and I started fantasizing about being with other guys, in my fantasies I was always a female. I always had breasts and a vagina. Now I'm doing this and I'm not even realizing I'm doing it. It's so second nature. So I connected the dots and I realized, wow, you're not gay, you're transgender. And the process began for me to transition. It was slow, but it was sure. And finally the pieces of the puzzle started to feel like they were coming together. But if I thought the bullying that I experienced growing up was bad, boy was I in for a rude awakening. Because every single society in the world has their gender rules. The way that a male is supposed to act in the particular society. The way a female is supposed to act in that particular society. The role of a male in that particular society. The role of a female in that particular society. And if you're someone that kind of falls somewhere in the middle, oftentimes you're going to be subject to horrible treatment. Horrible treatment. So, I think that it's important for us to come together and really look at this whole thing, because the transgender community has experienced so much discrimination, and discrimination on many different levels. Discrimination with housing, healthcare, employment, and even this discrimination oftentimes leads to horrific acts of violence. About 13 years ago, I was brutally beaten up by some guys who targeted me for being transgender. And they wanted to destroy me. When I say destroy me, they beat me up pretty bad. but by the grace of God, I survived. And you know, when I think about my life and the journey, I am a survivor. And every single other transgender person on this planet are survivors. We are survivors. And that is why it is important for us to honor our fallen. The many transgender people around the world that have been murdered just for living their authentic truth, just for being who they are. The late great Mahatma Gandhi said, be congruent, be authentic, be your true self. And believe it or not, that's what we transgender people are doing. And we're doing it in big, bold ways here in our community. So we honor our fallen because we stand on the shoulders of the ones that came before us, and the ones that come after will stand on our shoulders. My prayer for myself and my fellow transgender sisters and brothers around the world is that despite the negative way much of society views us, that we know to the core of our existence that we have a divine place here on this planet just like every other human being. That we know to the core of our being that we're entitled to our civil rights just like every other human being here on the planet. My prayer for myself and my fellow transgender sisters and brothers is that in the many faces of injustice, that we can still walk with our heads held high and know that we are beautiful. Love, peace, and blessings.